Twinkle, twinkle, little star,
He's alive!
Welcome to where the weird ones are.
Every time I speak, I want the truth to come out.
Powerful figures in Hollywood as well as powerful politicians who are in fact not human. They're reptiles or they're lizards or perhaps extraterrestrials.
I don't think it is a human. I think it's a Sasquatch.
Go ahead and run. Run home and cry to mama.
Let's get weird.
What's up, you fucking weirdos? Welcome to another episode of Where the Weird Ones Are. My name is Kevin, but you probably already knew that, and if you didn't, now you do. Today's episode is with Heidi Luv. Yes, she's here for a second time, and just as informational, knowledgeable, sweet, kind, and fucking funny. As always, if you haven't checked out her podcast, it's Unfiltered Rise. You should go show her some love. She has a lot of, interesting and intelligent and informational, people coming on to, shed light on these not so much easy to talk about subjects. So today we get into occultism and, John Dee and Abraxas and, more Mormonism. Are Mormons actually Freemasons and stuff like that? So yes, it's pretty interesting. It was a lot of fun to speak with her again. I do have a Conspiracy Tuesday coming up that also will be featuring Heidi, so check that out. That'll be on Patreon. So weirdos, if you go to Patreon, go to Weirdos Only, and you'll be able to find my page. If you're interested, it's only $5 a month, so you get the Conspiracy Tuesdays, you get the story time, you get a free coffee mug. Every show, all the regular shows come out, early, so you don't have to wait for them if you're waiting for them or whatnot. And yeah, so if you're interested, obviously you don't have to. Totally okay if you don't. Still love that you're here. And I appreciate that you're here listening to this today. So, with that being said, leave like, follow, share, subscribe, do all those things, help the show grow. Leave a rating and review. I would greatly appreciate that. You can leave a review on Apple or Spotify. And on the website, which is where the weird ones are podcast.com, which also has, the blog and the merch store. So if you're interested in merch, there's a new Mothman design on there. So if you're into that, it's, Mothman doing a preacher curl. So that is, it's a fun one. I like it actually a lot. So, but I do have a new review from Anger Management SMD. Says really enjoy Kevin. Love his interviewing skills. Try not to ever miss one. Keep up the great work. So thank you for that review. Greatly appreciate it. But yeah, if you guys want to jump on the Patreon, I would greatly appreciate it. Obviously you don't have to. I still love the fact that you're here. Yeah, and if you have time to leave a rating and review, I would greatly appreciate it. And I will be in North Carolina at Encounter Quest. So if you're interested in the speakers, like Ron Moorhead's a special guest. I think shoot, I can't remember the other speakers off the top of my head at this moment, but Cryptids of the Corn are going to be emceeing, so they're going to be introducing each speaker and stuff. And yeah, so I'll be vending. So I'll have hot sauce, t-shirts, stickers. If you're interested, in coming on down to Hamlet, if you're in the area, Hamlet, North Carolina, or Rockingham, North Carolina, either or. That's where Encounter Quest is going to be taking place. Now it's free to get in, but you have to, if you want to listen to the speakers, that's where you got to buy your tickets. So, with that being said, I'm also going to be at 40 Fest, which, oh wait, I'm sorry. I forgot to tell you when Encounter Quest is. Encounter Quest is April 13th. They're also doing a casting class, like precast or whatever. And then they're doing on Friday, on the 12th, April 12th, and they're doing a meet and greet dinner also Friday night with the speakers. So you can pick the brain of the speakers and stuff, and you'll be able to like sit and chat and have dinner with them and whatnot, which is really interesting. I'm pretty cool, and I'm really happy for the fact that they're doing that. That's dope as fuck. But June 8th, right here in Sanford, Maine, will be 40 Fest. I'll also be vending there. And then September 14th, will be Cryptid Fest. And that's in Raynham, I think, Massachusetts, which I should really probably figure that out. And there I will be vending and speaking. So, and that's in Massachusetts. So if you're interested in that, that's September 14th. So mark your calendars. I think that's all the news, all the things that I need to speak about. Check out One Nothing podcast. Check out Cryptid Warfare podcast. Check out Beyond the Shadows podcast. Great podcast that I listen to. So yeah, I hope you guys are having a good day, good night, whatever time the fuck you're listening to this. And let's just dive on in with Heidi Luv, shall we?
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Let's get weird. Let's get weird. Let's get weird. Let's get weird. Weird. Get weird.
What's up, party people? And we are back with Heidi Luv in the house from Unfiltered Rise Podcast. Heidi, how's it going?
It is going good, going good. I have some fun things to bring to the table tonight. It's kind of an extension of Mormons, but not exactly. But you don't want to hear about the same thing every time, right?
Exactly. We need new stuff.
So I figured we'd go another way. Yeah, we'd travel the road, right?
Perfect. I love it.
And so we almost didn't get to go on. I'm glad it worked out. I'm glad the karate didn't mess it up. My kids have too much stuff going. I'm like, yeah.
I feel you. Heidi, real quick, just in case anybody listening didn't catch you on your first appearance, just let everybody know who you are, what's your podcast, and where they can find it.
Well, I am Heidi Luv. I'm at the Unfiltered Rise Podcast. I'm everywhere podcasts are served, even YouTube still, which is, I laugh, but I'm glad. I don't want to be kicked off or anything, but sometimes they get mad. But also my podcast is mainly about Mormonism, but also because I am an ex-Mormon. I was a Mormon for 34 years, but also we do a lot of different other things. Like I'm very into the cult and researching it because of Mormonism. I would never probably do that as a Christian podcaster, but like I had to because so much of it was just related. So we're going to talk about that.
I like it. I like
Yes,
it.
yes. I think that possibly I figured something out on accident. And I never really knew how far the whole John Dee thing went, or I didn't even know who John Dee was when I was a Mormon at all. I never studied anything like this in my life. But I brought these parchments on multiple shows, and they're very occult in nature. Did I show you slides when we were on last time? I can't remember.
No, I think you. Oh shit! No, you didn't. Nope, you didn't.
No. Do you do video pod or just audio? Because if
I
it's
do
audio, I'll
video.
describe. Okay.
I do
So
video
if
and
it's
audio.
video,
Actually, you should be able to share your screen.
screen share. That's what I'm wondering. Okay, let me see if I can do that. So there it is. Yep. There we go. All right. I'm going to show you what led me down the occult road accidentally. I didn't even mean to. Like, it was such a weird, it was like a weird thing that happened because yes, pick entire screen. It's having a moment. It's gonna get there. So I didn't know anything about the occult other than I knew who Crowley was. I mean, who doesn't, right?
I mean, yeah, it's pretty.
Yeah,
He's pretty well known at this point.
He's one of them. And so when I got out, I was studying Mormonism because I wanted to see what the crap I did, because I knew I had done some weird magical things and I super wasn't comfy with it. And this is why. Let me show you. All right. Can you see this?
Yes.
Sigil. It's blown up on full screen. Can you see that?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So this is a definite sigil and sigil magic. These are parchments that belong to Joseph Smith and his family. They lie and say these were his brothers. However, Joseph Smith was notorious about treasure digging. He was the treasure digger, not his brother, it was him. And so Hiram's family inherited these in this treasure digging bag. So, why would Hiram have them? Once again, and had all these magical parchments in them. Now, the church blows it off and says they're folk magic and all this stuff. But I'm sorry to say, if you look at these, nothing going on here that looks normal. Okay. It's definitely this guy in the corner on the bottom, this little, not the star, but the opposite side. It's a drawing, right, and it's actually calling down for specific angels. Okay. I.e. probably fallen angels. And this is very Enochian in nature, which leads us to John Dee. And I had no idea who the hell John Dee was. So if anyone doubts me, here's the receipt. This one looks like Baphomet's head, by the way. All of the parchments likely belong to Joseph Smith Sr. and Joseph Smith Jr., but were inherited by Hiram's family after Hiram's and Joseph's death in 1844. This parchment is the property of a private collector, and these are the only photographs available. Now, I'm sure the church would have buried these in their humongous vault, but they can't because they don't own them.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah, the private owner of these won't release them. And this is a talisman that he constantly wore. He wore this until he died. And I'm going to talk about this too, but I just want to show you the pictures first. So Joseph Smith's Jupiter talisman, blah, 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 blah. They also had a Mars knife, which is a ceremonial dagger for sacrifices. The Smith family acquired instruments of ceremonial magic, including a dagger inscribed with occult and religious symbols. So all of this stuff, and this is his seer stone, which the church does own. They own the stones. Oh, those are the magic underwear. And so we don't want to go into the magic underwear, but I'll show them anyways. And this is the weird occult stuff that we do in the temple. So all those are just fun little pictures to just kind of solidify that. It doesn't look like anything you would do just at church, right? This is the drawing of the Salt Lake Temple. I've got all these great old books because I live here and people get rid of them or die or whatever, and then they sell them to these bookshops, and they're super old, and they're basically ones that they've destroyed or got rid of or say they don't use anymore, whatever, and I'm able to find them, so it's amazing. This is obviously the temple, but it's all mapped out with the astrological signs and the months and all the things. Like they're obviously very into, it's more than meets the eye. We'll say that, because why would they care? Right. And currently these symbols, the sunstone, cloudstone, moonstone, pentagrams, blah, 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 are all being covered up by the LDS Church. They are redoing the temple because they say, well, they need to because of upkeep. But including in that, they are covering all these Masonic signs up. So I'll just stop sharing there. One more thing I will share. This is a sample of the Enochian alphabet on the top, which we're going to talk about John Dee and his Enochian alphabet, because it leads right into what we're going to talk about. So that top part is John Dee's Enochian alphabet. And this bottom part is a sample from Joseph Smith and how they wrote down to translate the Book of Mormon. They tried to get this certified, and the guy that certified for them, when he found out that they channeled it, he was like, take my name off of it. No. But anyway, he kept it. And so it was out there. So if you look at these symbols, I mean, other than the fact that some of them are put together, like multiples of one or the other, it looks very similar. Wow. So very similar in nature. And I think that's because here is a sample of Lucy Mack Smith's own handwriting, where she talks about, let not my reader suppose that because I shall pursue another topic for a season, that we stopped our labor and went at trying to win the faculty of Abrax, drawing magic circles or soothsaying, to the neglect of all kinds of business. So she's saying we're not being lazy. We're still worshiping the house of Abrax, i.e., who's Abrax? Let's see. How about Abraxas? Abrax, or the house of Abrax.
What the fuck is that thing?
This is a demon. And it's also a god. It depends on what you want to label it as. And that's why I was like, ooh, we should talk about this, because it fits so well with your, like, all your topics, right? Weird. Definitely weird. It fits in weird.
Yep. This is where the weird people come to have weird fucking conversations. And this is fucking weird.
It's definitely weird. And this is an amulet because Abraxas was actually worshipped, and they put this on talismans just like Joseph Smith. So I'm going to close this out, but that is a talisman.
She done froze, people. She done
and
froze.
I'll tell you, they let's see, let me pop back up. There we go. They believe that Abraxas represents duality. Now, if you noticed, they call him the chicken snake god. And he has a chicken or eagle head. Now, it could be an eagle at times. But also, if you notice, the Starbucks girl, she has the same tail.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
That split tail.
Yep.
A lot of people just throw it out. Oh, she's a siren. Maybe not. The thing about Abraxas is he represents the duality of man, much like what Crowley and all those people talk about. And some believe, I don't believe this, Gnostics believe that he is the God of all gods, that he is above God. And whenever I speak about Mormonism and I tell people about this house of Abrax and all these things, some people are perfectly fine with saying, yeah, I would pray to Abraxas. Sure, why not? That's the best part, you know? And I'm like, I don't think so. But that's because Gnostics believe that he is the God of all gods and that he was the one to create this universe. Okay. It's not quite Luciferianism. Actually, he's the dark end of Luciferianism, and Lucifer's the light bringer in this story. And he's like the dark, or Sophia, which is also the wisdom, right? So he locks up Sophia constantly and has her kind of captive. And then he's the dark piece, and then she's the good piece, which is the tail split in two and the representation of that. So I doubt that he was actually looked that way, but then what I know about Nephilim and fallen angels, I'm like, maybe the frick he did. I don't know. That's pretty creepy, you know?
It is creepy. You're not wrong.
Yeah. I mean, and then to know that they started making these talismans with him on it because they had a 10-year-long plague, and they said that this would heal them. And so that's very interesting, where we came out of 2020 and the things we know, right? Like, what the hell are they doing? Yeah. Like it makes you go back to a whole nother thing, which is like, did they tap into like something weird to channel that back or what, or try to attempt to, which I think, I mean, personally, I feel like they just were running a test because I think if they really wanted to do stuff, they could. We're at their mercy. I mean, unless you grow your own food and live on your own farm and have your own well. And even then, if they dump crap up in the sky and it falls on your well, then you're still drinking the same crap I am. So, I mean, I buy filtered out stuff and like have it actually reverse osmosis and all this stuff. But not everyone's even going to do that, So if they wanted to get us, like, they probably could, it's kind of scary.
So easy.
Yeah. It's like
them.
they've made us complete cattle. Like,
Yes.
and that sucks because
It does.
we have to fight back in some ways, but that's why I always stress the importance of pray over your food and water. Because why does God have us do that? Like, it's not really a respect thing. It's to protect you. Like when you are praying over your food and water, whatever's in it, it doesn't matter if you're asking God to bless it and protect it. Like, right? Then that goes back to that whole thing. So it makes more sense when you think about it that way. Like God's not just having you do something because like, ooh, do what I say, like he's not really like that. Or he just would have made us do what he said and Lucifer would have won that whole argument. So, and there wouldn't have been a war, right?
Yeah.
We're in heaven. And
That's
so
true.
these talismans go clear back. And not only is Joseph Smith guilty of this stuff, when I say guilty, I mean, this is how I believe Mormonism was channeled, no different than John Dee channeled the Enochian alphabet and the Enochian workings. Do you know what those are?
No, please.
Oh, this is
inform
going to
me.
be fun. All right. So John Dee's an old cat and Crowley takes all the he's like, I did it all. It's me. Look at me. No. John Dee is the father of the occult. John Dee is old. He's Queen Elizabeth I. And he was her like not sorcerer, but he would go to her. He like did astrology charts for her. And like he never was part of the court because his dad was, and he was like the linen picker. Like this fabric is good. He didn't make anything. He was just like the linen picker. And he always wanted to be in court, and they offered him something when he was younger, but then he didn't take it because he was like, I'm a mathematician. I'm super smart. I want better than that. And then they never did it. They were like, well, guess you just don't get to play. And so he was like, what? But he still was at court. He was there. He just didn't have a position. He was the original 007. He was a spy. He was very huge mathematician, and he is the father of the One World Order. Yeah.
Oh, shit.
And, yep. And he gets missed on all the time. So here is a book that I love about John Dee. And this is why I studied him so hard. So this is John Dee and the Empire of Angels, Enochian Magic and the Occult Roots of the Modern World by Jason Luv. And I don't know, because my light is being weird. But anyway, this book is really good. You can also, he has his own podcast. He's an occultist. I'm warning people, like, this is not, I mean, John Dee was a Christian and he loved God, but he went down a real wrong path, and we're going to get there. But he is the father of the occult. And so what he did is he was super smart, and he just couldn't, I feel like this would be me, not because I'm smart, but because I couldn't let go of reality. He couldn't channel. Okay. He tried and he just failed. And so he finally gets this guy, Edward Kelly, and he's like, look, I need somebody to channel these angels, and this is how I need you to do it, and blah, blah, blah. And they start this Enochian workings. This is clear, like I said, clear back in, I can't remember. He was born in 1527. And so, I mean, this is old. And actually, he got a ton of his stuff even older than that. And we'll get to him too. But he got these ideas because he was one of the smartest people. He had the biggest library in all of Great Britain. And he wanted to open a public library. The public library is like his idea. But they were like, no, nobody knows how to read, stupid. Like, why would we do that? Like, they were like, keep your books. And so he would borrow out books to people that could read, but I get it. Back then, most of them couldn't. So his books were his thing. Like that was like all he wanted in life was knowledge. And he only slept 4 hours a night because he was so into knowledge and so into reading. And so he was a mathematician. He was like huge and intricate in like all of this, like basically, like I said, he was one that pushed for America. He was one that pushed for Great Britain to be like under one nation. Like he really was so instrumental, and he kind of got the shaft. But also, I mean, he's talking to angels, and he thought they were good angels, but we're going to get there. They were not good angels. And so this Edward Kelly guy, he'd been into some trouble. So a lot of people will say like, oh, he's full of it. He just lied. And I'm sorry. They worked on this for 8 years. Edward Kelly tried to quit 3 different times that are documented because he was like, this is scaring me. This is really bad. I want out. I don't want to do this anymore. I want to go home to my mother, type thing. But John Dee had like a little hold over him because he couldn't get work just anywhere because he had gotten into trouble for being a thief. And so they chopped his ears. So the top of both of his ears so that everyone would know that he's like a thief. That's like the sign.
Oh, that's something that they do for thieves is they cut the top of their ears off. Oh, no shit.
Well, they
I
were
never knew
pissed
that.
because he stole from rich people. So he was forging documents, and he was doing this on titles of houses and different stuff. So it wasn't like he just robbed a loaf of bread. Yeah. So he cost a bunch of people some really serious money. So he was pissed, and they just cut his ears to show everybody. So he wore a hat and stuff, but he was kind of like hiding out with John Dee at first, but even later when he could have gone, he kept trying to leave because the angels were like, hey, you need to go get married. You need to get married. He's like, I don't want to get married. Like, I seriously don't ever want to get married. And they were like, you have to go get married. So he goes and marries this lady, and he hates her. And then like right after that, the next time he works with the angels, they're like, why are you married? Why did you go get married? They're just messing with him so hardcore. So this is why I kind of believe him, because this guy is confused. He's like, what? And he legit hates his wife, like legit hates this woman.
Oh,
and then,
shit.
Yeah. And then on top of it, not only that, but they were like, by the way, you all smell. Every time you come around us, you stink so bad. And so they had these rituals where they had to like clean up and do all these prayers and all this stuff. And Edward Kelly was kind of like, I just don't want to do this. I don't want to do it. And I kind of think he really would have left if he could have. And then he tried to leave, and he said a sword came out of a book and stabbed him, and was stabbing him over and over and over till he went back. You can't run from the demons, man.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Causing him actual physical pain. And so I'm like, okay, I have a hard time with the whole he made it up. And also the Enochian language is the pre-Adamic language reversed, because the angels said if they gave it to him the right way, it might like explode the world. So like they had to make it backwards and like all this weird stuff. So these symbols, they use this today. This is a real language. I'm sorry. I don't know how you would just make up this language like crazy, just like in your mind. And he wasn't like some scholar or anything. He was an alchemist, and that's great and everything. But I don't think he could have just been like, yeah, I'm just going to make this whole really complicated, backwards, crazy symbol language. Like, no, you wouldn't do that. Like, you'd be like, yeah, it's Pig Latin. You just add this and then like, what? You wouldn't make it that hard. You know what I mean? Like, come on. He's a normal guy.
Hi, I'm Natasha with Cryptids, Creeps, and Conspiracy. Embark with me on a journey to uncover the details involving cryptids, haunted houses, and unsolved mysteries. Get ready to awaken your curiosity and explore the unknown. Ask questions, and together, let's unravel the secrets behind the legends.
And so John Dee kept working with him, and they kept working over and over and over with these angels, and different ones would come down all the time. but they had to use this channeling table. And this, people will have to go look this up. I need to screenshot this onto my computer and add it to like a John Dee folder instead of just Mormons, because I always end up to John Dee because it will play into this. So anyways, it's like got seals on the bottom. It looks like a huge Ouija board, honestly. And it's creepy. It's like, it's got very specific instructions how to make this. You can go make one if you want to talk to angels and stuff. And people swear that this works. I would never, I mean, I'm just saying I wouldn't do that if I were you. You can do what you want, people. Yeah. If you want to be haunted for life, like I'm going to say this, John Dee and Edward Kelly both died horribly afterwards. So like, I probably wouldn't do that if I were you. But you know, your choice. So yeah. They get all this going, and they really believe John Dee loves God at this point. He is like all God in. And then, you know, it always comes, you know, it's never come for free. They don't want your money. They don't want that. They're like, so you want to keep talking to the angels? You guys got to swap wives because we want to watch, and that looks fun. So let's do that. And then John Dee he said he knew. He wrote this. He said, I knew at this point it was probably bad. Like, maybe I should have not done that. But then you're all in like 8 years. Like, think about this. You've been doing this every day for 8 years. And it's like the climax point, literally. No, sorry. Okay. It's, we have a delay. I'm sorry. Okay. Listen, people. Would you give it up? Like 8 years, you're in this 8 years and you're like, meh, my wife. I mean, yeah. Okay. So he's like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. So they do. So they switch it up. Remember, Edward Kelly don't care. He hates his wife. He's like, yeah, take her. I don't even care. Yeah. But John Dee was an old cat. He was like in his 60s at this point. Edward Kelly was a young man, and that John Dee's wife was a young lady. She was like 40 years his senior, or I mean, he was 40 years her senior. So she's like 25 or 26 something. Well, 9 months later, there's a baby. Yeah, it sucks.
No shit.
And he had to raise this kid for the rest of his life. Yeah. So John Dee got the raw end of the stick all the way around. Just so bad. And he dies penniless. He also lost his wife to like sickness, most of his children to sickness. Like I think one daughter made it. And he had all these kids. He had like, I think 5 or 6 kids. It was just nothing good. And his works, by the way, were never recognized while he was alive. Sound familiar? Like every person ever that ever channels things anyway. Because this happens to all of them after they die. I mean, because the angels don't care. Like even one time the angels, he asked them, why are you cruel? And he goes, what do you mean? And he's like, well, somebody asked one time, like, will you save me from drinking or something? So they threw him in prison. And they were like, what? I cured you. Like, you're not going to drink in there. Like, why are you crying? You know? And these angels were just like horrible, you know? So at this point, you should have known, like, you're not dealing with probably good things, you know? It's probably bad. Yeah. And some of them were showing up like naked ladies and like all kinds of weird stuff was going on. So they still finished it. But like after the wife swapping, they were like, okay, peace out. Like my wife's knocked up, like get out of here. Like they just split and went their own separate ways. But there was a lot that happened in between. I mean, I'm really cramming this together.
Which wife got knocked up? John Dee's wife?
So John Dee's wife. Yeah. Okay. And Edward Kelly, they were traveling all over and they were going to like Prague and stuff because the angels would tell them like, you need to go here, you need to go there. And so they would go do it. And then, so listen to this, they go do it. And they're like, oh yeah, this guy, he's going to love you so much. Like if you just go to Prague, their guy there is going to treat you so good and blah, blah, blah. They get locked up, imprisoned, and Edward Kelly, they finally get out and John Dee's like, peace out, I'm going home. Like, this is crazy. And so he leaves, but Edward Kelly's like, no, I'm going to stay because he offered me some money or something for alchemy. And so he stays there and they imprison him again. He jumps out a window, breaks both his legs. They have to chop. There's 2 different stories. One says he died on impact and one says his legs had to be chopped off and then he died of like horrible gangrene. So I don't know which one, but they both sound bad. Yeah.
I would rather
So,
die instantly. I'd rather that story for myself
definite.
anyway.
Holy crap. Yeah, same. I would not want any extra time. Just let me go. So, it's like, okay, this is what happened to these guys. And in the midst of all this, sorcery becomes like, holy crap, bad, because Queen Elizabeth dies. And guess who takes over? King James, like King James Bible, King James.
Yeah.
And he's burning witches left and right. So
Yeah.
they're scared. So they're like, the angels told him, you burn your books, you burn them now and save your lives. And guess what, though? Later on, they're like, go dig up under this tree. And they were all there. So this is going to be interesting because if you know anything about the Book of Mormon, the plates were just there, right? Like all of a sudden these plates are here. And so I kind of think that it's very interesting. Those books of John Dee's were left and he buried them in his yard. And this other guy, last name Cotton, I can't remember the first name, found them later. But like a maid had been using them to like start her fireplace with and like wipe her ass, probably, like who even knows. Like she was just tearing pages out. And finally he's like, hey, where'd you get that? That looks old. And she's like, psh, I found it in a trunk, somewhere in a trunk, and somewhere buried in the yard. So the ones in the trunk, he's like, hey, these are John Dee's. He was like a big deal because he didn't become a big deal until after he died. So
of course,
the guy's like, yeah, he's like, I'm going to look around the yard. So he starts digging up the yard and he finds quite a few things. And so some did survive. And, they were using this black mirror. Now, I told the guys about this, and I don't know if you saw this on Cryptid, but I was explaining about how they were channeling these angels and they have to use some kind of medium. There goes the earphone. Okay, my ears are small. So, anyways, they what was I saying? Can you still
Black
hear me?
Mirror.
Black Mirror.
I can still hear
Yes. Way to go. Okay. So Black Mirror,
You're going to tell me about cell phones, the glass in the cell phone.
Yes, that too. And so they had to channel it, but you can use other things. And yes, liquid crystal display is not just in cell phones, all TVs, unless it's a plasma, but still, I bet there's some kind of crystal in there. So obsidian, it's like dark. It's like a black mirror. It's not, and you wonder where that name come from for that show. Like Black Mirror. Yeah, that's not
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. There's a lot of symbolism in that show.
Oh, for sure. And if you people haven't seen Black Mirror, you need to go binge watch Black Mirror because that will tell you about the future for sure. But so long story short, Crowley does this and this goes into like everywhere. This ends up in with the Knights of Malta. This ends up like way out there later and it becomes a whole bunch of religions. Okay. But not only that, who does this after him? Crowley. So Crowley is the next person that I can think of that does this same crap, but he doesn't do it with the table and all the things that John Dee did. He goes to Egypt and what does he do? He channels an entity, he channels Aiwass and he writes a book, right? And do you remember what he said about Aiwass? He said, that was not a good alien. He lied to me. I wish I'd never written that book. It was the only one of all of Crowley's writings that he said he wished he hadn't written. And then next comes along like with Muhammad and Gabriel and, like that whole thing and channeling there. And then he would have these fits and fall down and like have seizures and everything would go black. And they didn't write it down because they were an oral tradition people. But later after he died, because it was like these two people's job that follow Muhammad around to like memorize everything. And so they did. But then after he died, they were like, well, we probably should write this down, because all the stuff he had. So they did. And that's becomes a book, becomes a religion. Okay. Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard out in the desert, channeling. Yep. They make it. And what happens? It becomes a religion. Mormons, same thing. He's channeling into his hat, becomes a religion. Like all of this is the same story. But every single time, this is how you know people. Because people still say to me, I know, but I still believe the Book of Mormon's true. And I'm like, okay, hear me out. If you believe in the Bible, in Galatians, it says, even if an angel comes down and presents you with another book in addition to the Bible, it is false. It's a lie.
Yeah.
So right there, it's telling you, it's warning you. And these angels, every single time, there's a requirement of either sex magic or something sexual. So polygamy was with Muhammad and Joseph Smith. And then John Dee was doing the wife swapping, and Crowley was doing everything, just all the things. And then Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard were in the desert doing butt homunculus making. So like all these people doing this weird stuff, and it all becomes religions, and people still believe it. And I'm like, here's the problem with that. When you are required to give a Faustian bargain, a price, therefore it's not free. God wouldn't do that. Like Jesus never required anything of us. He just did it because he loves us. But he doesn't say like we smell bad or start stabbing us with swords or say you have to swap wives, like, or raise some other person's kid or all this crazy stuff. Like it's free. It's just free. And so eventually all this stuff combined, if you go back even further to Al Kindi. Now, Al Kindi, shout out one-on-one. I didn't know this until I heard it on his podcast, that John Dee actually got his stuff from Al Kindi, who was like an ancient prophet. Like, I believe it was in Iraq. I wrote it down, but he was definitely inspired by this guy. And he had written a whole bunch of texts, 242 texts survived. And they were also about math and ancients and like religious stuff kind of. And so it had this huge impact on him. And then they get into, now here's where it gets interesting with the Mormon stuff that I showed you back before. They start talking about Gamias, Gamaaea. Okay. Gamias. Yeah. And that, it says this, it stores astral forces inside something, i.e. a talisman. Remember what Joseph Smith wore? Or a talisman until he died?
Shit.
And I'm reading all this and I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm just like freaking out and I'm listening and then I'm reading. Because even if you go back further than that to Paracelsius, this is like old, even like way old. He is talking about trapping astral forces inside a box or inside something, right? And this can have medicinal cures or help you with things. Well, this gets into Kabbalah and gematria and all this other stuff. So, but it brings you back to, okay, the astral. And then what did he have on his talisman? The Jupiter. He wore the seal of Jupiter. Well, he wasn't born under the sign of Jupiter. That's not his astral sign. He was using that because if you look up what Jupiter represents, it's like charisma, sexual energy, making people do things they don't want to do, like salesman-y, like making people bend to your will. And what did he end up doing? Having like almost 40 wives. And sleeping with other people's wives, which isn't even part of the church, by the way. Like you cannot go sleep with other people's wives. Joseph Smith was doing that also. He was like, you just got to go on a mission because I like your wife. She looks good today. So you got to go talk to the Native Americans and they'll lie. But everybody knew that he was like almost okay with Emma doing it too. But she was like ride or die. She was like, no. I only love you, just you. And he was like, it's fine. I mean, he wasn't like, it wasn't like polygamy where he just wanted to be the one. No, he didn't care about that. It was more polyamory, to be honest, because certain people were already married. And then, so anyway, the more I learn about this, I'm like trying to figure out gnosis, because this leads you into so many weird roads. So you're going down like Kabbalah, gematria, all these things I'm explaining to you. And then that's where I ran into more Abraxas with the thing with his mom talking about Abraxas, well, the house of Abrac. And this is where we get abracadabra from. Okay, this is a magical saying. And so they talked about them. One neighbor gave an account about him trying to find treasure, and that they had to do these sigils and slit their fattest black sheep's throat with that Mars dagger and let the blood spill all over in a circle in the middle of the night, dressed all in black. And they don't talk about this. You know, they're not coming out with that story. Like, definitely
Oh
not.
my God.
But this isn't even hearsay. That was in a court trial because Joseph Smith got arrested for treasure digging because he wasn't good at it. He didn't kill enough sheep or something. I don't know, but he sucked. And so people were like, you know what? I'm going to take you to court because you like scammed us and you scammed everybody. So this guy, Willard Chase, was his neighbor. And that was on his affidavit that they were doing this stuff in the middle of the night. And they're like killing sheep and like blood spurting around. And so I'm like, you can't even lie and say that this didn't happen. You know, this is too much. And so the other nice little piece is his mom was the first generation to be born in America because her dad was from Scotland. And that it pulls it together so nice. Like, because what's happening in Scotland at this time and in England, what did I mention about King James, like freaking out and trying to kill all the witches and then the whole witch thing over there. And then now mom's over here. And they said she was a healer. She was known to be a folk magic healer. And the church says that. Yes, the church. And who did he spend the most time with? Because he was sick. See, he got typhoid fever when he was like 8 and it messed up his leg. Actually, he should have had his leg cut off, but his mom was like, no, please don't cut his leg off. Just cut out the infected bone. And he was straight up awake for this business. This happened at their house. And so he was scared they say he did it because of his spirit and he was so great. But I'm telling you, it's probably because his dad was the town drunk that he didn't want to drink. And he did it like stone cold sober. And that is scary and sad. But for the rest of his life, where would he be stuck at? Like most of the time, he's not working the fields with his dad. Okay. He's got a limp and a cane for the rest of his life. By the way, the cane is a serpent cane with a serpent head. Yeah. That's
shut the fuck up. Oh my
yes, I
God.
gotta get a picture of the cane. And so all these people are completely led astray. And this is stuff I didn't know. Like even me, like as a full-fledged Mormon, like I'm in it to win it. And I'm like, okay, well, I never knew any of this. Why did I not know any of this? Like you don't look up stuff. You're busy. You're trying to get to heaven. Okay. You're raising pre-mortal children to come down and you're going to 7,000 activities for church stuff. Like it's just overwhelming because they don't want you to be smart for sure. And I did ask some questions, but as a woman, I'm telling you, it's really easy for them to go, well, you don't understand because you don't have the priesthood. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then
you explained
you can
that,
go
you
now.
explained that a little bit in the first episode too. And then when you what you were doing, I can't remember what you were doing, but you there was a woman in doing the blessings or whatever or something like that.
Yes.
You're like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah. And they're just like, they just poo-poo everything. They're just like, it's totally fine. You don't know what you're talking about. You're just a negative Nancy, you weird lady. And I did feel like that too, because I always was really, maybe not. I don't like to say I'm so smart. Anybody can be smart. I'm curious, right? I'm a curious human. And so I always was a researcher and I did debate. I lettered in debate. I was a nerd, like always been a nerd. And so I always wanted to just like learn things, but that's like not, you can't show up at Relief Society church meeting to toll paint. You're supposed to be there to paint the things and be like, you know what I found out? Blah, 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 blah. Like they're going to throw you out. Like they don't know. And I already felt like I didn't fit in because I didn't. And because I worked and, you know, I just never did. You know, I just always felt like it wasn't where I should be. And they weren't mean, nothing like that. It's just, I worked outside the home and that was very rare in my day and age growing up, you know? And so it was always kind of like, you just take what they say. Like, oh, this is how it is here. Or this is how it is there, or blah, blah. And you're like, yeah, totally. I get it. Because you don't want to be like, but why? To your bishop, right? Like, think of a Catholic priest and he explains it all to you and you're like, but why? They're going to be like, get the hell out of here, Gina. Like, what is wrong with you? You know?
Yeah, exactly.
And you feel like that. Yeah. You're like, oh, okay. Yeah. Something's wrong with me. You know, like, okay, I'll go home. But, and
Yeah.
also,
I mean,
yeah.
I used to ask my parents questions too. Like, I mean, we weren't in any kind of religion or anything, but I would ask
You
them
mean a
like
cult?
questions, and yeah, well, I mean, I would just, I don't know, like I always, because a lot of times I thought, God was real, and then I'd go, God isn't real, or something like that. And there was a period of my life, I think it was like right in between after I had the first time that I tried to take my own life, where I would lay in bed. So I tried to commit suicide when I was 9, and I had started having like these crazy experiences after that with like paranormal shit. And I remember
You brought
used to,
something back with you.
yeah, I think
Did
so.
you have
And
like an experience? Did you like go to the other side?
no. I think it was just like because I mean, I didn't cut deep enough or anything. I bled a lot.
Right.
And I ran in because I did it outside in my grandfather's shed, and then I was just like, oh fuck, oh fuck, oh fuck, and it's like everywhere.
Oh man.
And I don't remember like leaving my body or anything like that, but I told my mom that I fell out of a tree, and she believed me. And I don't think my doctor did. My doctor's like, can you stay
Your
out of
doctor's
this
like, that's a
tree?
hell of a tree. Yeah.
Yeah, he's like,
Oh
stay
no.
out of this particular tree, please. Can you do that for me? And I was like, yeah. But I remember I'd lay in bed and I'd close my eyes and I'd get as still as I can, and I'd be like, this is what death is. And then I'd start crying. And then my mom would come in and be like, no, you're gonna go to heaven and this and that and stuff like that. And and I'm like, but why? Why would I go to heaven? Like, what have I done to get
Right.
there? And stuff like that. And there was no answers. I was like, well, how do you know that God is real? How do you know that heaven is real? And stuff like that. And there's
Mm-hmm.
nobody really has the answer anyway, but like it was just like, I don't know, it was
There's
just
some
like quickly
answers.
brushed.
You don't have to earn your way to heaven. You can just accept Christ into your heart, and
Yeah.
heaven's there for you. It's like you have to pick up the phone. It's like God is always like, it's like this is the phone and it's here. You can answer it or not, but it's always there. And if you answer it, he's there. But like, you don't have to, but it's there.
Right.
So yeah.
I was just telling somebody, I can't remember who the fuck it was. Actually, I think I might have mentioned it to a couple people now. The more people that I talk to on this podcast, the more that I think I might be Christian. You know what I mean?
Good.
Like
Good.
I'm just like I think I might believe in Christianity. Like the more people I talk to, I mean, because you got Drew and Zook. I hung out with them at
Oh, yeah.
CryptidCon in November. That's how they told me about you back then. And there's been a few Christians on. I've had Jillian Stone on. She's Christian. And just all these like stories, and a lot of them are really beautiful stories. And
Well, and it's all about like whatever you do. And this is what the Mormons do. And this is what scares me for people that are new like you. Don't let the simplicity of Christ be destroyed by religion. The simplicity of Christ is in the Bible. If you read Paul's letters to the Galatians, you will see the simplicity of Christ. It is simple, and it is man who makes it have a middleman and or a price. That is man. That's not God. And so don't let anyone stray you away from that, because there's a reason why they do that. They do that to control you. They do that for money. They do that for gain. They do that for power. They do this for a lot of reasons, but that's not God. And then people are like, well, I hate God because I was a Mormon and they lied to me and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you don't hate God. You hate the people that lied to you. They're full of it, like, no, don't throw the baby out. You didn't have a baby to throw out yet. I guess you didn't have that, but that's actually better. That's good, because you have no preconceived conception of like okay, this is bad or this is good, or somebody wronged people. Like that, there's people that leave churches. They're like, well, my pastor's a bad person, so I left God. I'm like, well, that's dumb. Your pastor's
Yeah.
just a guy, like,
Yeah.
I mean,
That
so
makes it, yeah.
yeah, just read the Bible and honestly pray about it. You know what I did when I got out? I sound like I was in prison. I was. When I got out, I started lifting weights. That's true too. Okay, so I got out and I started going through my Bible, and I don't read it. I do recommend you read it eventually from front to back because you haven't before, but I would just open it, just open it and open it to a page and just read that page and journal about it and just be like, see what sticks out for you. Sometimes I'll only do like 2 or 3 verses, not even the whole page, just like a little bit. And sometimes I'll get a message because I'm like, oh, it's the living word of God. And that means that if you've read it 1,000 times or once, it doesn't matter if you read it again, because every time you read it, you're at a different place in your life and God will send you a different message. It's weird. Like I've literally opened the Bible to the same verse and have it mean something totally different at different times in my life. Like, oh, this is about this now. Or, oh, nope, that was about that then, like whatever. But yeah, just really search it out for yourself, because nobody, and you know what time is the best time for it? Coffee time in the morning. I just do it when I have my coffee and it's quiet. And maybe that's because I have a lot of kids, but me and my dog's like, it's Bible time, huh, Mom? And I'm like, yes, come sit by me.
Yeah.
And
I decided I was gonna try and write this past weekend because I'm trying to write a novel, and so I come up here and I met with my nutritionist because I'm working with a nutritionist as well. So we did our weekly meeting, and I'm drinking coffee, and then I'm writing and stuff, and then before I know it, it's fucking noontime, and because I only had my son this past weekend because my daughter went to a birthday party, and I was like, where the fuck is my kid? It's lunchtime.
You're like,
and I
whoa,
open
it's
the
him.
door. Yeah, and he's fucking sleeping, and I go, hey, you ever gonna get up?
You're like, are you in a coma?
What's happening? I was like, you're sleeping, like still. It's the middle of the day. What do you mean what's happening?
What?
He's like,
how old is he?
15. I think he's going through a growth spurt or something like that.
My son too. Yep, he's 16. My son's 16. He's like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. I'm like, you just went to school. I know. I can't. I gotta have some food. I'm like, okay, eat something. I almost passed out. I didn't have food. I'm like, why didn't you have food? What are you doing? He's like growing and he's humongous. I'm like, why would you not eat? You're 6'2" and you're 16. Why would you wait?
He's
He's a big kid. Well, maybe he's 6 foot, but he's big. I'm Nephilim. I said no.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Your kids are redheads. So
yes, my brother was 6'3" and about 3 bills, and then my littler brother is about probably 6'3", 6'2", and he's thinner. He's maybe 2 bills, and then like my son, I'm sure he's 6 foot and 2 bills already. So
wow,
we got some big people in our family. Yes, and my daughter. Well, I'm 5'9", and my daughter's 5'10" and a half, and she's with a redheaded 6'5" dude. And so they're gonna have. I don't know what's gonna happen. Yeah, they're gonna have giants.
I'm 5'10". Holy cow!
My husband's 5'9", and so we're both like the same size, but I look taller than him because I have I'm waist tall, like in my waist, not my legs, and so. It looks like I'm taller than him, but we've measured at the doctor's office because this is like an ongoing joke at our house, like that I'm taller than him. And I'm like, we aren't. We've measured at the doctor's office and we are the same size. But he's just so stocky because he's jacked, So like he's like 2 bills, probably. I think he's like 185, somewhere like that. And he just lifts weights like all the time. Yeah.
Oh man, I can't remember the last time I was at 180.
Well,
I think I was in high school.
He's very muscular, but very fit at the same time. And he gets to eat whatever he wants. It's super
lean.
unfair. It's super unfair. It's wrong.
Yeah, he looks lean as fuck. So
yeah, he is. I'm like, you eat all the candy. Why do you get to look like that? And I don't. You eat the garbage. People look at me and they're like, she's the one. She eats the I'm like, it isn't me. He's eating the snacks. I don't eat the snacks. I don't have a thyroid, so I'm always going to be thick. And then thick got like a thing this year, like a couple years. It's been like what, 2-3 years? It got weirdly a thing. And my son's friends got weird. And I was like, why are your friends weird? And he's like, Mom, you can't talk to me. Like, just don't even look at my friends. Just walk away. I'm like, I am in sweatpants and I don't even have my hair done. Like, I look like total. He's like, Mom, just go in your room or something. Like, please. He's like, Mom, please. I'm like, all right, whatever. I'm like, you go downstairs in your room. Most of his friends now are girls, but I'm like, yeah. It was
hilarious.
Yeah. They're always like, oh, you seen Riker's mom? I'm like,
oh man, that would make me feel weird.
He's not I mean, sometimes he's like, you're baddie, Mom. Like, he'll say funny things like that. I'm like, what?
Oh shit.
What does that even mean? He's like, yeah, my friends, blah, blah, blah. But sometimes he's like annoyed with it. Sometimes it's funny and sometimes it's not. It depends on the day.
I have a similar story with my daughter and her friends, which absolutely makes me extremely uncomfortable.
But you can't control what they say. Yeah, we can't.
Right. My ex-wife was like, have you talked to your daughter about your TikTok? And I go, my TikTok? I was like, what's wrong with my TikTok? And she goes, apparently a couple of her friends have found your TikTok. And I go, okay.
Okay.
And she goes, and your daughter is very upset. I was like, why? And she's like, because they keep watching the one that you're shirtless in. And I was like, oh my God, come on. She's like, she came home. She's like, oh, my friends and Dad's TikTok, and they're just watching the video of him shirtless, and I'm like, oh my God, that makes me, because they're like 12 and 13, and I'm like,
well, I mean, you can't help what they think, and honestly, we all had a crush on somebody's parent. Like, I'm pretty sure. I know I did. And I had a crush on the guy at the gas station, and he was super old. And I remember I was like 12 and I was like, what? You don't think I'm hot? And I was like 12. And he was so nice. He was like, you are highly confused, little girl. He's like, here's a candy bar. Go home. Like, he was so nice to me. And so shout out to the 7-Eleven guy, wherever you are. Like, you were super nice to me.
That's so fucking hilarious.
I know. I was and I looked like I was like at least 17 because I was 5'9" by that time, like by 5th grade.
Oh wow!
Like I was a full grown up lady.
Old?
Yeah. Oh,
jeez,
by
Louise
5th grade.
Pepper cheese.
Oh yeah. I remember one time in grade school, somebody was like, "Where's the teacher's faculty room?" And I was like, "What?" I was like looking around. I was like, is this girl talking to me? Who's she talking to? And she's like, I'm subbing today. Can you tell me where to go? I'm like, you can go to hell. I don't know. I was like, what do you want from me, lady? I was so upset. I was like, because this is when it wasn't cool. Like, because I was super tall and it was embarrassing. And I was like, I remember being upset because they were like, why did you be mean to that teacher? I'm like, she called me a grown up. She called me a grown up. And they were like, so... I remember my friends were like, well, you look like a grown up. I mean, yeah. And I'm like, great. Thank you. No.
Hey, Katie.
Yeah?
Want to make a podcast?
Sure. Can we talk about outrageously dark and scary things like murder and aliens?
Yeah. And is it cool if we talk about beautiful things like divination and astrology?
Yeah, that'd be cool. Hi, we're Katie and Kelly, hosts of the podcast All Things Outrageously Dark, Scary, Beautiful, and Totally True.
We recognize there's a lot of podcasts out there, but what sets us apart is our professionalism and dedication to our research.
New episodes every Wednesday. Tune in, and of course,
have the day you deserve.
We had a teacher that when I was in high school, we had a teacher that looked like a kid. Like she was like a lot smaller than everybody. And I remember walking down the hall with her for some reason. I can't freaking remember. She was taking me somewhere else for something.
Detention.
And
just kidding.
Probably. I mean, it could have been. I just remember we were walking down the hall and this other teacher was like, "Hey, you got a hall pass?" And I just like looked at him and he was looking at her.
Oh my gosh, you're
And
like,
she didn't even
yeah,
like
you
she
got a
didn't
hall
even
pass?
acknowledge him. And he's like,
Oh
excuse me. And
gosh.
I was like, I don't have a hall pass. And she kept walking and she's like fucking not paying attention to him. And he's like, hey. And fucking she finally stops. She's like, "What?" And he looks at her in the face and he's like, "Oh my goodness.
Oh,
I thought you were a
sorry.
kid." He
You're fun
realized who she
sized.
was.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I used to look at girl. My daughter's actually super small, the one with my husband now, because he is only 5'9", and his kids are all really small. And so it's been kind of, I will say this, it's been kind of cool to be a mom to like a small person, because like he's smaller and my mom is only 5'2". You ought to see these pictures. I'm going to send you one for fun. I'm going to send you a picture of my mom with me and my brother. It's like, it's ridiculous. It's like, this is me. This is my mom. And then my brother's like even bigger. It's just, it's ridiculous that she had us. And so it's kind of nice because my girls, both of my older girls that are 28 and 24, they were giants like me by like 5th grade, you know, especially my one that's 5'10" something now. Like she was a full grown, you're having full grown woman conversations, like, and they're like in 4th and a half grade. You're like, oh my gosh, we got to have a talk, you know, like, cause I don't want her dating like some 25-year-old guy, cause their mother married a 25-year-old guy when she was 17. So I'm like, listen, it's a bad idea. Don't do that. Cause you feel awkward with the boys that you're around. Just wait. Yeah. But
I told them both no dating until they're 30, but my son's already in a relationship, but she kind of
if you do that,
a little bit.
They might just sneak it. They'll sneak it, or it could go badly. Just let them do it. Just watch.
Right,
just
right,
be like,
right.
not the whole dating, not the whole thing. You gotta, you know, be careful.
My ex-wife told me that I needed to have the talk with my son this weekend.
Oh my gosh. My son has never needed the talk. Like his dad tried to do the talk and he was like, he came home. My son is like, if you want to know what I look like as a boy, go to my Instagram. You'll see my son. He is definitely my son. And B, me and my son are closer than him and his dad, which is weird. He just always has been very close to me, but we don't hide anything from our kids. So each one of our kids has seen the next kid be born, every single one of my kids. And so I read a big article when I was in nursing school and I worked labor and delivery. And I read this article about when the pregnancy rate rose. And everybody might think it's when, you know, there wasn't as much contraceptives or whatever. No, none of that. What happened was the pregnancy rate used to be low when there weren't contraceptives back in the 1900s, not just because everybody was being good. Let's be real. Let's get real. Okay.
Yes.
And even into the 40s. It's when they removed other girls from the birthing area, because if they see that and they don't just see like, ta-da, look, it's so cute. It's so cute. Look, it's just like a doll. And I just went in there and I shut the door for 5 minutes and then ta-da, and it's so cute. Like, that's a mistake. That doesn't show them like, nope, there's some real life things that are going to happen to you. And it's probably disgusting. So all of my kids have seen, and my son, my stepson, and my little son didn't really care, but my stepson went up at the top. Like the boys were kind of at the top, you know, behind your head. So they only have like one view, the baby, but they see the pain. My epidurals never work. So they definitely saw the pain, and they, you know, they got to kind of be a part of that whole thing. And I'll tell you, I've had a lot of kids in my life. None of them have had, now I'm going to knock on it, any close calls whatsoever. And not just my kids, but not my stepdaughter, not my sister that watched me have birth. Nobody's had a close call. That's kind of interesting. I mean, It's like, oh yeah, I saw that. That was some nightmare shit. Like she screamed a lot, you know.
That's
Like,
nightmare.
yeah, that's the things nightmares are made of. Because like even my dad and everybody was there, especially my home birth, my second daughter, because the boys just stayed in the living, like there was like a split kitchen area. I was in the living room, they were in the kitchen. My dad was like, you almost gave me heart palpitations. I don't know. You were just so upset. I was like, well, yeah, I was having a baby. Freaking didn't even get a Tylenol. Yeah, it hurts. Like, what? But don't do that. It sucked. I don't care what they say. That people are like, I had a home birth and it was so wonderful. I'm like, yeah, that sucked. I don't even know. That sucked. Like, then you got to clean up the mess yourself. So, highly not recommended. I mean, yeah, you got to do it once, I guess. I mean, I did it once, but my epidural still didn't work, but I did feel safer in a hospital for sure.
I will say that for my son, we had midwives. For my daughter, we had doctors. The midwife experience was 10 times better than the doctor experience.
And nowadays you can do birthing centers, all kinds of cool things. But back then it was like, well, this would have been 1999. It was like we didn't have insurance and we're in an area where there was a lot of polygamists. And so they had midwives that would come over the border and they would actually do them in your house because it's illegal in Utah, but it's legal in Arizona, I think. But we're like right there on the corner where Arizona's like 12 miles away. So they would just do that. And yeah, I did it. I was like, well, we don't have any insurance, so I guess we're going to try. And if it goes horribly wrong, we'll just go to the hospital, you know. Now I did labor and delivery for 2 years after like this point in my life. I would never do it again, not knowing what could happen. Just seeing too many babies be born and just crash, like the worst nightmares. I worked in the ER for probably 15 years, the bulk of my career. And I did this little blip in labor and delivery. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is like so much scarier. I thought I was like a badass because I was like, I'm in the ER. No. The most horrific medical emergencies you will ever see are definitely in labor and delivery. Like where you're like, if I pull the cord, I can't find her little cord thing. And as she's bleeding, when I say bleeding, I mean, I have moments to figure out if I can stop doing what we call credaying when they come in and torture your wife in the middle of the night and they're poking on them, you know, to, get their tummies hard. So to stop the bleeding, do I stop and find the cord? She's going to die before I find it. Like literally squeezing platelets and people like shoving them in. It's intense. I would never want to work there again. And the women hate me. So it's, yeah, you got to be a girl's girl to work in labor and delivery. You can't be a guy's girl and work it. They don't like it. They're like, this woman needs to go back to the ER. And I was like, yes, I do. Yes, I do. I don't belong here. I already know. Like, I know I look like a girl. Yeah. I was like, I'm over there listening to podcasts, being my nerdy self, just charting away. And they're like, she's not fun. I'm like, all right, whatever.
Sorry.
I didn't fit. Yeah. I'm not enough of a Karen, I guess. Whatever.
Oh, well, that's not a bad thing, I don't think.
Yeah. I just got sort of the haircut. That's why I do one side short, one side long. So it's not the full Karen. I don't want to be the full. Can't go full Karen. I can't do my hair long. It's bad. Yeah.
Well, it's curly.
Yes. But I curl it.
Curly hair and long don't mix.
Well, I have to curl it. It's straight normally, but at least this way it looks full. If I did it straight, it would be just, I do it sometimes. I think I have some pictures on my Instagram that way, but yeah, so that's my story about, we got way off topic, but
yes, we did. Very.
I think it's kind of fun. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm like, we're all over. We're talking about medical stuff. But the whole time you were talking, I have to tell you this, and this is a weird thing to tell you. Okay, so when Cain and Abel are fighting and Cain kills Abel and his blood spilled, it literally says into the ground and it seeped into the ground. When you were telling your story about being outside, I was thinking about that because I was like, maybe that's where an attachment came from, because it went into the ground, because blood is life and life is blood, and it went into the earth. You understand? Like to the beneath. So if something does mess with you in the nighttime, I would talk to the girl that I told you about on the sleep paralysis, but also I would just rebuke anything with Jesus's blood. Put the full armor of God on you.
Yeah.
That's
I
just
did
some
that
good
the
advice. Yeah.
I did that the other night. I was sitting here. My dog's bed is like literally right here, and she'll lay here a lot of times when I'm recording or writing. She's not here right now because she's probably sleeping on my bed. But my son's door to his bedroom is right across the hall. Like I can like right here from where I'm sitting, I'm looking right at his door. His door's shut. But this one particular night, we're sitting here. I think I was writing, and his door was open, and she just gets up and walks over to the doorway, and I'm just sitting here doing whatever the fuck I was doing, and I stopped, and I noticed that she wasn't on her bed, and then I look over and she's standing in the doorway staring into my son's room, like completely motionless. She's not moving. She's just staring. And I'm like, "What do you
Wow.
see?" And she didn't like acknowledge that I had spoken. And I go, Rizzo. Like I called her name 3, maybe 4 times. Didn't acknowledge that I was talking to her. So then I knew that she was looking at something. And just before I actually looked into the room, it looked like something had moved. And it fucking scared the shit out of me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I just was like, in the name of Jesus, you are not welcome here. I was like, if you have bad intentions, I do not want you here, and you are not welcome, and this and that. And then it took me, I stood, because I like, as soon as I noticed that what I thought might of something had been moving, I just like instantly stood up from this chair and just started yelling at it, whatever it could have been. And I was just like, and then it took me probably a good like half an hour before I left this room.
Oh man. Yeah, I would have too. I've had some weird things, and the more you expose and the more and see people, that's the hard part too, is when you become a believer, the more you'll get tested at first, because it doesn't want you. I actually interviewed, I haven't put it out yet, but I interviewed Zachary King. He used to be a grand high wizard of the Satanist church. Okay. And so he's like up there, and a lot of people have interviewed him. But the one thing he said to me is, he said, we don't care if you are worship God. I don't care. He's a Catholic now, by the way. He said, back then, I didn't care if people worshiped God or not. All I wanted them to do was not worship anything. He said, the best thing you could be is an atheist, because that's just as good for me. He said, because you're not giving praise to the Lord Jesus Christ, so you're not giving praise to anything. And he's like, that's being a devil worshiper incarnate. And I was like, whoa. I was like, really? And he's like, well, it's exactly. And then he said the only churches that they wage war against, like do these satanic, scary satanic things. I'm going to have to put half of it on Patreon. I don't even know if I can put it out. Because it was graphic. It's super bad graphic. And he was talking about like abortions and stuff and what they would do to like get power over certain churches and like the intention that they would put behind it. And he said the only churches we ever cared about was the Catholic Church and the Protestants, I think it was. And he said, and I was like, what about the Mormons? And he's like, we don't have to worry about them.
Oh shit.
I was like, oh, he's like, they already don't have Jesus. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I mean, of course he can't say for non-denominational, because that's like, you're nothing, you're not going, you can't attack someone if they're not at a specific place. I mean, you don't gather with just one group. But yeah, he was telling me these wild things, and I was like, and when I say Grand High Wizard, I mean like he signed bands. He lived in Los Angeles or California, wherever. He was the one you sold your soul to for like multiple years, like all this wild stuff. And it was, if you could get him on too, he's a good one. He's older now and he is Catholic now, very Catholic, like helps with, he actually now goes out and tries to do prayers against this stuff because he knows exactly what to pray against for people to not get abortions. He's like anti abortion now, even though he assisted in like 148 late term abortions where things were cannibalized.
Ugh.
Yeah, it got deep. It got real.
I mean,
real
that
deep.
abortion's cannibalized right now anyway. It's a fucking
yeah.
the
But
whole
I mean,
thing, because like no, I know
I
what
mean,
I know what
right
you
there.
mean, but like
Yeah.
right, they put the blood of abortions in like freaking medicinal things for your skin.
Well, yeah, makeup and all kinds. Well, and
that
one of
shit.
the 13 main families, which you have to really research about makeup because I wear makeup, obviously. And I actually
don't.
didn't. Yeah.
In case you
You
didn't
don't
know.
have to. You can just take off your shirt. That's why girls need makeup, right? You should never wear so much makeup that, by the way, that we don't know who you are after you take it off. That's also awkward.
Yes.
Like that's
that is
weird.
very awkward.
I just don't have eyebrows anymore. When I take off my face, my eyebrows are like, bye.
I feel like
they're
that
there.
happens with a lot of blondes though.
Yeah.
I feel like
they're there, but they're just
Yeah.
not there. And my daughter asked me one day, well, she came home, she's like almost 10. She's like, Mom, the kids at school are making fun of me. I'm like, maybe because she's short or so. I'm trying to figure it out in my mind. I'm like, why? I don't have eyebrows. I'm like, oh, sorry. I don't know. I'm like, one day soon you'll be able to draw them on. It's fine. Like, I'm like, your brother didn't have eyebrows till he was 15. She's like, Mom. I'm like, I'm sorry. I don't know what to say. It's like a light colored thing, you know? She's like, ooh, she was all sad about it. If she heard me right now, she would have a shit fit. Like, she'd be so upset because I talked about her eyebrows. She's very still sensitive. Yes. And I'm like, this is such a stupid thing to make fun of. Like, really? Not as funny as when my stepdaughter came home from school and she was like crying. She was really young and she is like she's a dancer. So she has like this perfect, tiny, tiny little person body. She's like 5'2". She's like perfect. And she came home and she was upset. And I was like, oh man, what's up? You know, like perfect bikini body, like can't be like, I got called fat all day. Like, because now I look back and I was like, oh my gosh, I wish I was that fat right now. Like, yeah, that'd be great. But, you know, so she came home, she was like crying and she's like, they made fun of me. I'm like, why? Because she's like normal everywhere. She's not even flat chested. Like everything's fine, you know? And she goes, because I have a small butt. I'm like, you're a small person. If you had a big butt, that'd be ridiculous. You're like 5'1.5". Like, what? And she's like, yeah, I don't have a butt. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is such a weird era that you're living in. Like, I don't understand. Like, you can't have a huge butt. You're barely big enough to hold yourself up. Like, if you had a big butt, you'd fall over. I don't know. She's like, I'm really sad. And now she's fine. But I just was like, that's so weird. What a weird thing to make fun of people. I'm just always like, people are weird. But my long story short with that is one of the 13 bloodline families, not the 13 bloodline families that they tell us about. Because if you're a gangster, let me explain something that my gangster prison grandpa, he didn't go to prison, but he went to jail like so much he had to change his name. So yes, he was what you would call in the 50s a hood. And he was definitely that. And he also was a biker and all this stuff. So it was like a whole situation. But he told me, he said, you know, that the one thing with all of the people that you find out, like if you get this guy and he's like, I've been to jail and I'm so cool because I went to jail. He's like, no, Nobody ever says that actually went to jail. He's like, people that went to jail don't want you to know they went to jail. They don't want you. If they see somebody on the street that they recognize from jail, neither one of them will make eye contact. Like a real OG will not talk at all ever again about this situation. Like this happened, you put it away, and you don't talk, you don't know the real names of a real gangster, like the people in charge. And he's like, and you should never know the names of the people in charge. He's like, you might know the names for a fall guy because he's stupid and they let him think he was in charge. And so I always knew those 13 that they put out, it wasn't a thing. But Este is on the other list, the quiet list. And that is Este of Estee Lauder. Estee. Speaking of makeup. Yes. One of the things that New York Patriot, shout out New York Patriot, told me was that the Shriners own the hospitals, and then they have the spina bifida people, the babies with the spina bifida. Well, they have to drain that fluid, and he's correct, but that they keep it and that they sell it because that's spinal cord fluid. And when people are talking about gold juice, spinal cord fluid is clear, but plasma from blood is yellow, just like gold. And we got into that on Zachary King as well. And that he was at some Satanist house and they were getting weirdo blood, like full on dialysis blood transfusions and they were on dialysis. Dude. Yeah. Yep. And so there is some things in life stranger than fiction, and no one will ever believe you because no, they're not. And do you know that the Queen of England, because she is rhesus negative factor, the RH factor, right? The RH negative, they all are, that family is, the RH negative factor didn't even come out until 1938. That's pretty odd in itself. Like what? Just before that, it just wasn't a thing. Like how did that happen? But minus that point, they carry their own blood supply with them everywhere they travel.
What?
They're O negative. Yeah. So that's an interesting thing. And I only know that because I'm super obsessed with RH factor because my grandma, oh, you can't see her. Well, I have a picture of sometimes when it's zoomed out, you can see it, but my great grandma was, and she lost a bunch of her babies like at 9 months, like almost time to have a birth. Yeah. My grandma was the first one that survived, and she probably only survived because she was a girl, because all the boys died. Because white boys are the most genetically inferior race to survive at birth. This is real. I'm not making this up. If you're a baby in the NICU and you're black, you will survive better than white. If you're brown, you will survive better than white. But if you're a girl, you will survive better than all of the boys, any color. And then the colors go the same. Black first, brown second, white third. We call them wimpy white boys. I know that's rude, but that's the way it is. They just don't survive as well. Yep. And so the girl finally survived. And once you have one baby that survives, because there was no ROGAM. My grandma this is my great grandma. So this is like back. And she finally had a girl, and it like kind of it doesn't convert, but it helps them not attack themselves anymore because the blood crosses at birth. And then your body goes, oh, okay. I know what that is. Okay. We're good. And then the next baby's fine. And my grandma had 5 kids after that total. But before that, she lost 3 late term. In fact, the last one almost killed her because she didn't know it was dead, and it was dead inside her for a month. And
for a month? Holy cow.
And she got blood poisoning. Yeah. And she didn't know, she said, how do you know back then? She had no idea. She was like, I mean, they listened to it and stuff. They thought they heard it, but yeah, it was weird. And so that's where kind of we joke about that I'm a Nephilim, because that grandma for me was the RH negative. And we just make jokes, but Or if you're on a show with some people, they're like, nope, she definitely is. Look at her face. I'm like, what? No, I was just saying, like, I mean, I think everybody is personally. I think everybody has a little bit in them. I think our blood has been tainted because
Well,
about the
that, yeah.
cabbage babies,
I read up on them a little bit when you talked about them the last time you were on.
250,000 kids, 250,000 people. What happens to those kids when they grow up? They get integrated into society and they have babies of their own. Where did they come from? Then you get into go read the Book of the Cow and the homunculus stuff and start really tripping your shit. Like, then you're like, because I know
The
that
Book
one
of the
thing.
Cow. I'm gonna go look for that.
Just go. Don't read it. It's so bad. It's so like confusing. Go watch Juan on Juan, Book of the Cow, Libra de Vacay or something like that. But it's really good. And then if you have like a little bit of foreknowledge with this other stuff that went on, and then all of a sudden there's all these incubator babies, like where the hell did they come from? Like, oh, we got all these orphan kids. We don't even know what to do with these orphan kids. There's so many orphan kids that you know what we should do? We should keep all the babies. If they're born too early and they're probably going to die, we should save them. Save them anyway. Because, babies. What? No, you wouldn't do that. You'd be like, yeah, sorry, that one's not going to make it. Try again tomorrow. Not tomorrow, but like, I mean, if you had so many kids that you're not going to keep them at all, and you're like, where am I going to put these kids? Oh, we're going to send them to work in factories. That's what we're going to do because that's super damn smart. Like, what?
Hello, like mother, like murder listeners. I am Rachel.
And I'm Heather.
We are the hosts of Like Mother, Like Murder.
We bring you the good, the badass, and the crime.
Each week, we bring you stories from missing and murdered
to survivors and women who empower you.
And of course, some mom talk sprinkled in.
Check us out wherever you get your podcasts at Like Mother, Like Murder.
And give us a follow on social media so that we can say hi.
Okay, love you, bye.
Okay, love you, bye.
The world was ran that way for a while, and like, okay, that's weird. Oh, just make him the farm boy. You hear that in old books, old movies. Oh, it was the farm boy. Now we know what the farm boy was. He was the kid that they got from the orphan train. That's your farm boy. And I always used to wonder, like, where the hell did the farm boy come from? What's a farm boy? You just get one of those at the store when you get your hoe and your, like, I don't know, rake. Shit. But the one thing a woman definitely wouldn't turn away in society. Think about this. Your dad, you saw a little 2-year-old kid walking down the street and nobody is going to take that kid. What would you do? Take it home? You're not going to leave a 2-year-old just walking around like, oh, I hope he's okay. Like, maybe you try and find the parents first, obviously. And then if everybody's like, oh, that's orphan James, whatever, you'd be like, what? Like, yeah, you guys are just leaving this kid. He doesn't have food. He looks like all sad. And then you see all these mattresses. This messed me up. This messed me up so bad, Juan. If you are watching this, you messed me up with the whole thing, underground Jewish bloody mattresses, and everybody else is thinking sodomy. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they're making homunculus babies. That's all I could think of. I'm like, oh no, they're doing weirdo alchemy stuff down there, because that's where my brain went. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So thanks for the nightmares. I was like, everybody else went to pedophilia, and I'm over in the corner like, oh no, they're inseminating menstrual blood into the horse. Like, there's some weird, it gets weird. Like, when I say it gets weird, that one's weird. Graphically weird. Butthole babies. Ugh. Yeah, it's a whole thing. So when I saw those, I was like, what if they're making the next breed of weird things that are going to be out? And then they had the alien thing happen too. And I was like, oh my gosh, what's that? That's their parents. They're looking for their kids. No, just kidding.
What the fuck? The alien thing? What do you mean?
Yeah, the Nephilim aliens in Miami. They only went there.
Oh,
They were looking for the homunculus babies that were hidden in the tunnels. Okay, I'm stupid.
That's funny. Though.
I can be stupid on this show because I did my intellectual spill already. At least they can see that it's weird and it's fun. It's still good information.
I think so. I think so too.
Yeah, and Juan is a deep dive. Like, if you have you listened to Juan ever?
I have never. Well, I've heard
my
him on
gosh.
other shows. I've just never listened to his show.
Juan is like so smart. Like when I went on his show, I was like, I was scared. I was really scared because he is so smart. Like literally, he knows like so much stuff in his brain, and I'm like, and Thomas does too from Paranoid America. He knows a lot. He plays off like he doesn't, but he does. He does a cult book club with Juan. So, yeah, shout out Thomas. Their stuff will keep you awake. Their stuff will make you want weird. Go check that stuff out. It's a lot.
Well, I'll go check it out then for sure.
Yes, of course. Well, have you had a fun time getting weird?
I had a fantastic time. It's been fucking weird. I've gotten shocked. I've been awed, and I've laughed.
Yes.
So
we gotta have laughter. We gotta have laughter.
Absolutely.
It's not as fun. Yeah. And then you gotta work on if you get saved, which I think you will. I think Jesus is talking to your heart already. When you get to the point where you start learning about generational curses, it'll be good for you to buy this book. Well, you could buy it now, but John Lopez. No. Well, I can't think of his name right now. I'll send it to you.
But I have been working on generational trauma
of prayers. John Ramirez. Yes. And he will help you. His prayers are amazing for breaking, because they're, heaven and earth and the down below. Like heaven works very much like a courtroom. So if entities are allowed in your life somehow, some way, they got access to you because it was granted to them or by generational lines. And mine's Mormonism, of course, because it's. And so my whole lines that I worked on for generational trauma, generational curses, generational stuff, I slowly broke off, but it will explain it to you little by little. Or there's another one, which is Derek Prince, and you can put it in YouTube. Derek Prince. Now he's an old white guy and he's boring, but listen, he's dead. First of all, he doesn't have a church to gain from this. Okay. He's passed on. Secondly, he's going to come off really legalistic, which is like, throw out the legalism. Like he's going to be like, oh, you should never listen to this music or do this or do that or ever think one bad thought. Like he's super, because I think he was Pentecostal, but his sermons are good. And this is what I try to tell people all the time. Like when people want to cancel people because like, oh, he said you should never listen to rock and roll or whatever, ever drink a beer ever, or whatever it is. Like, remember this, you can gain knowledge from anything. You don't have to take all of it. Just take the good parts that you pray about it. Like you have your own discernment. And I always tell people like, you don't have to do everything he says just because he says. Like, find out for yourself. He has good sermons on breaking curses. If you put in breaking curses and his name, Derek Prince, it'll help you a lot. Because I had to do it by myself too, because I didn't go to no church for that help. Plus, they think you're weird. They'll think you're weird. They'll be like, right. Because churches don't administer like that anymore. They're like, curses, that's old news. Like, we don't. I'm like, the whole Bible was only Jesus coming here to cast demons out of people. But that's not a thing anymore. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, I don't think I can back like a church religion, like a being in going to a church. Like my neighbor goes to church and she keeps trying to get me to go, but I'm like, I don't need to be in a building to worship. know,
actually, there's one thing that you really only have to do, honestly, and you can do it right at your house. That's give your heart to Jesus, say the sinner's prayer. You can look up the sinner's prayer online. It's like 5 or 6 sentences. It's like very short. It's like, do you believe in Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, blah, 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 like all this stuff. And you're like, yep. And then that's all. Like, it's really not it. They want to make it difficult. Even baptism, you know, my husband and I have talked a lot about this because people force that a lot. Even baptism is just something that Jesus wanted us to do because he did it and he was like the example, and we should want to do it. And when we want to do it, that's when we should do it. When I left the church, the Mormon church, it took me, so I've been out 14 years and I only got baptized last year. So that's how long it took me to want to do that, to say, yeah, but you know what? I got baptized in a reservoir. And if the river hadn't been so high, I would have got baptized in the river, just like Jesus. But I didn't do it the normal way. And I didn't do it by a priest or anybody. I just knew this one guy that was super into God and he knew how to baptize people. And I was like, hey, you want to baptize my family? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, okay, cool. You're not a Mormon, right? He's like, no, I'm not a Mormon. You have to ask in Utah. Utah, you have to make sure. Because I was like, oh, don't be tricking me now. I'm out. Don't put me back in. I was like, but even that, it's just symbolic of like what Jesus did for us. But is it necessary? There's a lot of argument that it's not, you know. And Catholics will tell you straight up, they think babies go to hell if not. And so I'm like, yeah, no, I don't think so. You know, I'm not down with that. Like, I don't believe in original sin. I don't think that we come here all tainted at birth, you know, from because our parents did the deed, because Adam and Eve and blah, blah, blah. Like, that's weird. And I just think that everybody makes religion so hard, but that's because it's religion. That's not the spirit. You'll know, you'll feel it. You already sound like you feel it. Like you're like, I think I'm a Christian. Like that's half your battle right there. Is like, oh, I think I feel this, you know? Okay.
Yeah, there's been a couple of times where just like I either like knew something or like knew something beforehand, or just like
it's
like
the
doing
spirit.
my inner work, like my shadow work and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And I feel like there's something there.
The Holy
something
Spirit.
Higher.
It's the Holy Spirit will guide you. The Holy Spirit isn't, it doesn't dwell with you before you accept Jesus 100%, but it comes to you. And then after you accept Jesus in your heart, it will dwell with you and you'll feel it all the time. And I think as a Mormon, I never really did. I mean, I know I was supposed to, but I didn't have enough openness with the Lord to be like, okay, I want that, you know? Yeah, I want that. Give me that, you know? And I just wasn't there. I was like, yeah, okay, this looks good on paper. Okay. Yep, I did that, you know, like whatever. But I really didn't have the spirit, and the spirit will lead you. It will guide you, like serious, like and I'll send you the sinner's prayer. I've done them with a lot of people. And you know, it's just, God also says like, go in a closet, you know, like your prayer closet. He doesn't say, go up and make a show. Like that's not how it is supposed to be. So just don't let people change your mind about it, because I think you've got something special there and it'll change your life. It'll mess with you though. First, like little bit after you become Christian, you'll be like, oh my gosh, my life is falling apart. And then it gets better. Read Job. If that happens to you, go to the book of Job and do this. Say, read the book of Job and go, well, my life's not as bad as Job. All his kids died in one day.
They did. I mean, they did too.
Yeah, they did. They did. I laugh, but I'm like, that was the one thing when I lost my daughter, because she's estranged, you know, that whole story. And she's not dead or anything, but I haven't seen or heard from her in 4.5 years since she has a baby and a grandma, you know. And every time I get sad about it, I'm like, well, not all my kids died in one day, like got smashed by a building. So I'm always like, it's okay. You've got to like just look at the bright side of things. And I mean, sometimes that's hard, and especially if I want you to promise me, I'm going to send you this one sermon on Derek Prince and depression because of the story you told me, because he talks about it, and he talks about being delivered from depression and how it changed his life. And he wasn't even a Christian. He didn't even know what a Christian was. He got delivered by not even knowing a Christian. Like he was in the army. He was just in the army barracks, and he was like calling out to God because he was so depressed. And he was like, please deliver me of this. And he learned that depression was a spirit, like how I was telling you, like Jesus came and what did he do? Cast spirits out of people. But people don't want to think that they could be inhabited, right? Like they still follow you no matter what. Even if you're Christian, they can't live in you, but they could be right here, bugging you all the time. And if you believe in the good, you have to believe in the bad, because as above, so below, And he talks about when he found out that depression was like a person, but it wasn't a person, but like its own entity. And it wasn't him, like something mental in his head. He was like, I was so freed to know that this is something on me and not me. This isn't me. I don't have to be this, And he broke that spirit off of him, and he became a pastor. And he didn't even know the Bible. He was just like alone out in the barracks in the wilderness somewhere. And like, I think he was in Saudi Arabia, somewhere with camels.
With camels.
And then he accidentally baptized his first person, or like got them into the fold of Christianity, because he told them about it. And they were like, I want to know about this. And they were Muslim. And he accidentally converted somebody without knowing Christ either. Like, I mean, he barely knew Christ. Like it's an amazing story. And he's an old cat, but like, so he's got the suit. I had a hard time. My husband's ex-wife told me about him, and she goes, he's like a Mormon. And I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot listen to a Mormon guy talk. And she's like, I know, just get past it. Like, don't even watch it, just listen. Then like turn off the visual, because he does look like a Mormon prophet. Like he does, and he talks like one kind of. Shit. And now he's like my favorite whenever I'm low or whatever, because he actually does ministry about casting out demons. He's good. You'll like his stuff. You'll like what he has to say. I guarantee. I know I'm trying to convert you. I'm sorry. Not really. But I feel the spirit. After you said that, I felt the spirit so strong that I should share those things with you. So.
Oh, well, I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Of course.
I just, there's my life has kind of like taken a turning point of, so I'm expecting a child in April, at the end of April. And it wasn't planned. Well, it wasn't planned. It wasn't expected. And
congrats.
Thank you. When I found out, I was just like, oh my God, like I kind of wanted another one, but I kind of like had come to this point where I was like, I'm 35. I got 5 more years when I'm 40. And I'll still be young to go out and just like do shit that I want to do, because my kids will be adults by the time I'm 40. Like, and it's weird to say my kids are going to be adults in 5 years.
Right. Because it's a weird concept. Yeah. In your mind. Right. But I'll tell you, it can be a blessing. It can. My daughter.
No, I believe that 100% sure. I'm 100% on board with it and everything. Like,
but it was a surprise.
Yeah, it was a surprise. It was a shock, but like, I think there's something that I need to learn within it. You know what I mean? And it, like, I just got like this like weird epiphany, like there's something new that I need to learn or something. Like maybe it's love. Maybe I need to open my heart up or something like that, because I've had a hard time ever since this like really bad breakup with just like feeling and giving love. I mean, I give love to my kids. My kids are
I get that.
The number one thing, but you know what I mean?
My husband and I got together. So I was 37, almost 38 when I got pregnant with my little last daughter. Her name is Faith. And her name is Faith because we got together and we were both done. Like he had 2 and I had 3, and that's a damn lot of kids. Okay, that's 5.
Uh-huh.
And we weren't 100 together. Like, we were together and I loved him, but I don't know that he knew for sure if he loved me. He loved me, but he was hurt from a divorce, horribly hurt, like destroyed. And he didn't trust people. And he wasn't certain, like, he was like, oh my gosh, when I told him I was pregnant, I was like, I didn't even know this could happen because I've had infertility problems half my life. And I just didn't think we even had to be concerned about this. And I had been going through radiation stuff with my cancer, and I don't have a thyroid because I had cancer. And so if you don't know, by the time the baby's 13 weeks, it will be mentally handicapped for the rest of its life, because if you don't have enough thyroid hormone to give to the baby, it's just damage that can't be undone. So I was already like kind of far by the time I figured it out. I was like 9 weeks or something, because I didn't know I could, like, I mean, I'd had Clomid pregnancies, like infertility problems. And I was like, I remember sitting in the doctor's office waiting for the doctor to come in about my radiation. And I was supposed to go for another round. And the nurse came in and she said, you can't have radiation. The doctor will be right in. Well, I'm a nurse. I know what that means. That means it's hopeless. We're not doing it. You're going to die. Okay. That's what that means in cancer world, is if they just stop abruptly in the middle of things, like it's because it doesn't matter anymore. Right. So I'm thinking I'm going to die, and I start crying, and he goes, no, don't. He came running in the hall. I saw him because the door was cracked. Don't tell her anything. She's a nurse. And he comes in and he goes, you're not dying. You're just pregnant. And I sat there for a minute, and I know he still is my doctor. And I apologize for this, God. But I literally looked at him and I said, check it again, because I don't know if I'd rather be dying. And I didn't mean it like that. Like I didn't mean it to be like that. But like in that moment, I was like you. Like I was like, what? You know? I was like, this cannot be happening to my life, because my son was like 6 and he was already really far apart. My next one up from him is like in her 20s. She's 24. Okay. Right now. So he's 16. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I can't, like, what? And so I just sat there for a minute, and then I had to remember, we're not married. Like this is so stupid. I've never had an unmarried pregnancy, and it happened to me at 37. Like I'm this old lady, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm having like a 16-year-old pregnancy, like this unplanned pregnancy, right? So I'm hysterical, and I call my dad. Well, if you knew my dad, he smoked all the time. He drank coffee all the time. And he just reminds me of George Carlin. Like if you put George Carlin inside my dad's body, that's my dad. And he's very cynical, and he's super funny, but like in a dry, cynical way. So I call my dad, and I'm hysterical, and I'm crying, and I'm like, Dad, oh my gosh, I'm telling him. And he just starts laughing, hysterically. Like, and I'm like, are you laughing at me? Like, what? And he goes, well, you do know what causes that, don't you? And I was like, what? And he goes, you're old. Like, you should super know better. Like, you're old. He's like, you're almost 40, Heidi. And I was like, I know. That's why I'm so upset. Like, and actually, she's been a huge blessing in our life. Come to find out, against my husband's wishes, he loves the crap out of me. Like I think we've fallen more in love in our 40s than ever. We're more in love now. We've been together 12 years, and neither one of us would have dated each other. Let me tell you, he was short. I was like, I remember my daughter saying, did you see that guy? And I said, who? And she's like, he's got red hair. Look he's got big muscles. And all I did was say, he's short. Because he's 5'9". I've never dated anybody under 6 foot tall ever in my life. And the only thing he thought about me was she's fat. And I was. I wasn't thick then. I was fat. And so we both were not, we would have never ended up together. And then we started talking because he was going through a divorce and I was going through a divorce. And we were friends and we had known each other for quite a while, but not like just like on Facebook and stuff. Like I knew him, I maybe seen him 2 or 3 times ever, like at a couple parties and things that friends had, like they had a Halloween party or something. And I remember like, oh yeah, he's cool. Like that's about it, you know? And I mean, my daughter was just like, oh my gosh, he's so like hot. He's so hot. And I was like, he's so short. Like what? And I know we joke about this now. And he was like, I always thought you were super pretty, but kind of fat. And I was like, oh, okay. And it's okay because my thyroid was all whacked and I didn't know. And I was heavy. And so like almost 300 pounds, like heavy.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah. I've lost like 70 pounds and he actually helped me a lot because, well, now
Good.
I've lost more than that, but like right off the bat, he helped me lose like 70 pounds, like right after we started just talking. And then I lost more weight after I got my thyroid out. So now I'm like normal, but like I'm a size 16. I don't care if the world knows, whatever. There it is. So is Marilyn. Who cares? And so, but I was like big back then. I was like a size 24. Like it wasn't sexy, curvy. It was no. So I know he was a little frustrated too with the pregnancy thing. Cause he was probably like, oh my gosh, like what if she gets fat again? Like I could see it in his face. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and then, but I'll tell you, it was one of our best blessings. So you're probably right. You know, you probably are going to learn. Like, I doubt he ever thought we'd be married. I definitely didn't, you know? I mean, so even if you don't get married, I'm talking about that love thing or whatever, or even if it's just the baby you're supposed to love different or raise different. You're such a different parent in your late 30s
Yes.
than you are in
I
your
am.
like young age. Yeah. You're going to be it's so much more fun because you're
Yeah.
like, meh, like
I
all the stuff you used to worry about. You're like, who gives a shit? Whatever. Like, that's
Yeah,
fine.
dude, I already like have this like game plan of like things. Like I want to teach her because it's a girl. I want to teach her
Aw.
how to like just be self-sufficient, like homesteading stuff, and I want to teach her all this like the occult stuff, and
Yeah.
and teach her that frickin' the government's not here to save us.
They don't
And
love
like
you.
I would
Yeah.
like to homeschool her, but the mother is not that she's
Is she a normie?
yeah, she's
It's
more
okay.
normie
Than not.
than most.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
But
I
you'll
try
get
and
to
tell her
teach her all
things.
that. Yeah, you'll get to teach her all that other stuff. Like it comes, you know what? I was a normie when my husband met me. I was a Mormon still when my husband met me. And I'm nothing like I was when we first got together. In fact, I think I'm worse than he is now. You know, now I'm like, don't drink that water. What are you doing? Did you just drink that water out of the tap? Like, and
Gross.
he's not like, he's not nearly as bad as I am, but he was the one that got me like there. So maybe
Yeah.
that's, and my
Yeah,
daughter
maybe.
is so much fun. Like she's a girl. He had like you, a boy and a girl, and the boy was older. And then he had, so they were like 13, almost 13 and like 8 when she was born. And when she came, like his other little girl was like princess dancer, princess girl. My daughter is like, I want to be in jujitsu, and they do karate together. They do a Muay
I
Thai.
love
She
that.
watches Bare Fist Night, like with us last night. She was watching Bare Fist Knuckle Night, whatever. She's like all about it with him, and they do all that stuff together. And I'm just like, okay, I'll be over
Nice.
here. Yeah, it's so funny. And I'm like, I thought I was gonna have another princess, and she's like, get out of here with that. She's not.
That's awesome.
Nope. She's like, I'm Cobra Kai. I'm like, oh, okay. All right.
Awesome. I love that shit.
So congrats on that. That's going to be exciting. Do you have a name picked out already?
Oh, I want to name her Charlie, but
Aw.
we'll see what happens.
Okay. If she thinks that's not girly enough, you could name her Charlotte and call her Charlie.
Well, that was exactly what I was gonna name my daughter.
There you go.
The one that I have already. I
You're
wanted
like,
to name her
uh-oh.
Charlotte so I could call her Charlie.
Yeah.
But that was a no-go with the ex-wife. And I told her Charlie. She's like, "Ooh, she likes it," but I don't know, like, if we've settled
For sure.
on
Charlie
that.
with an I
Yeah.
would be cute. You could do an I. Or two
Yeah.
E's.
Well, we were gonna. Yeah, I like the two E's. And
You're like,
then
not
there's
the I.
there's the Leigh.
Oh, that would be cool. That
is
would be
something
actually
that I
like
thought of.
Charlie. I have a Shaylin like that. CHALYNN instead of an S.
Oh.
Because my girls all had C's. So
Yeah.
we had to do a C, but it's fun.
Yeah.
I'm going to have a grandbaby right as you're having a baby. So we're having a little grandson.
No.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So it's our second one. Like I said, my first one, genetics can't be removed. She looks exactly like me. Her dad will see this and be like, no, she doesn't, because he doesn't like me. But I have proof. I have receipts. She looks like me. But she's far away and I haven't got to see her. But this little boy, he's my husband's son's. And we're super excited because we actually get to be real grandparents this time. So it's kind of fun.
Nice. That's awesome.
So we'll have to swap baby pics.
To your yes. Yep.
All
Instantly.
right. Yes, definitely.
We are about to get shut off by Riverside at 2 hours. So
you got it.
So real quick, if you don't mind, just to let everybody know one more time where they can find you.
Of course. I'm at the Unfiltered Rise, everywhere podcasts are served. We've got some interesting things coming up. Patreon. Unfiltered Rise has a new series that will be Patreon only called Blood Atonement. And we will be covering murders that were Mormon related. So it's going to be very interesting. And to spice it up a little, we got an ex-Mormon that's going to do it with me. And he's an atheist. So we're going to have one side and the other.
Awesome. That's
gotta
dope.
have it spiced up. Yeah, he's awesome. He's really fun.
Absolutely.
Yes. Well, thank you again for having me on. I appreciate it. And
Thanks
I
for coming on.
love coming on. Yes. Thank you so much.
All right. We'll have to do it again soon.
Heck
And
yes.
with that, everybody, that is the show. I forgot the camera's over here. With that, everybody, that is the show. Like, follow, share, and subscribe. I really hope you enjoyed this conversation. Definitely go check out Heidi's podcast. I've been listening since the last time I've had her on, so it's good shit. I think you'll like it, especially if you're into like the more conspiracy and the occult stuff. Her podcast is definitely one you want to check out. Other than that, check out the website, where the weird ones are, podcast.com for the blog and for merch. Question everything and stay weird.
Definitely stay weird.
This concludes our broadcast day. Click.
Because in the end, none of us have very long on this earth. Life is fleeting. And if you're ever distressed, cast your eyes to the summer sky. When the stars are strung across the velvety night, and when a shooting star streaks through the blackness, turning night into day, make a wish.